Hey, great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I'm Angela Lazar, Digital Project Coordinator at NCEA, and I'll be facilitating this webinar today. So just a few notes as everyone is joining in. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A window. And you can access the Q&A window by hovering your mouse over the screen, and you'll see it on the bottom. And you can just click there and submit your question. And I'll be monitoring them, and we'll have to answer the questions at the end. So submit them as you like, and we'll get to them towards the end of the webinar. And I will also share a link to our online survey, and you can receive a certificate of completion for this webinar through that as well. And we also use your feedback to improve our services. So please take time to do that. It should take no longer than 5 minutes. So for today's webinar, it is professional development using Title II-A. You'll learn valuable insights, strategies, and practical advice on how to optimize the potential of available federal programs and what they provide for all of you. Our guest today is Sister Dale McDonald. She is a sister of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary and has a diverse background as an educator and administrator. She brings expertise from her experience as the former director of the Catholic School Leadership Program at Boston College Graduate School of Education. She has contributed to education journals, served on various boards, committees, and has testified on education policy issues. As you can tell, her experience is definitely unmatched. So before I turn it over to Sister Dale, I'd like us to begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Amen.
Dear Lord, we pray that you will create among Catholic educators and leaders individuals made in your image, who will apply your teachings in their lives and positively impact our families, workplaces, communities, and our church. Help our leaders and educators to inspire those with whom we come in contact to share their God-given talents and to do your will and to find a place in your kingdom where their deepest joys and their world's deepest hungers meet and cry for their special qualities and abilities. In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Sister Dale, thank you so much for joining us. You can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Angela. Yes, so we're going to be looking at Title II today. Thank you for joining us. As you know, Title II is very complex, so I'll try to highlight some of the issues that give rise to many of the questions I get about how the program works for Catholic school educators. So presuming that most of you have some basic knowledge, experience with the program, so I will be going through just selected pieces. So what I will be looking at today would be noted here on the agenda: participation in the programs, then, the purpose of Title II, how they define professional development in Title II, who's eligible to be funded by Title II, and then the funding process and determining the equitable share, which is really important. Allowable uses for Title II, Part A, the consultation process, a PD plan, and then tips for maximizing equitable services. As Angela said, please put any questions you have in the chat box at the top or the Q&A box, and I will try to keep my eye on it. And if it's relevant to the piece where I'm at, I'll try to answer it. Otherwise, I'll do other things at the end. So just a quick review of the participation of private school students and teachers and other educational personnel. The focus is on the two main principles: child benefit theory and public trusteeship. And the child benefit theory deals with services are provided to the students and teachers, other educational personnel. No money goes to the school, and we all know that. We do not accept any funding. It's illegal for them to offer it to you, and we don't accept it, whether it's direct payment or, well, they'll pay the school. No, but they should not pay the school. And then the services must address the needs of private school students and teachers and other educational personnel. The important piece here is to keep this before the person you're dealing with for Title II requests. What is it that your students need, that your teachers need to be able to meet, and what do they need to do in order to fulfill that? So the focus is always on the students. That isn't easy for the administration, either on our end or the administration at the LEA. The focus is on this on the student needs, and then you go from there. And then again, the public trusteeship piece, where the LEA is the fiduciary agent and they control the funds, and we work with them on how they will be expended on behalf of our students, or in this case, our teachers or other personnel. The piece down at the bottom, the third, services must be supplemental and not supplant ordinary school responsibilities. So the supplement piece means that what you're requesting would be in addition to what you are able to do with your own resources. So think of it as like adding additional resources to enhance the program. So that if it is an ordinary school obligation, like having some funding for professional development, any qualified good school in this day and age has professional development built into their budget. This is what you would do to enhance what you have, to provide better opportunities for the educational personnel in the school. So according to the law, we refer to the services we receive, the funding that's used for them, as provision of equitable services. So basically, we're looking here at an equal opportunity for our educational personnel to participate in professional development programs as simply and as easily as the public school people do, and that the per pupil share is the same for both. Now, the per pupil allotment, which is how they base this program, look at all the kids in the LEA, and from there you determine this many are private school, this many are public school. What's important here is that not every school gets the same amount nationally. There are formulas in the law so that some LEAs get more money than others, depending on their poverty count and a few other things. That's not what's important in this term. For here, and for your particular purposes, if the PPA, the per pupil allotment, is $1,700 for public schools, it's $1,700 for private schools as well. So that's the important piece to keep in mind. And for Title I, we know it's based on where the child lives. All of the other programs, including Title II, your per pupil share is determined within the district in which your local school is located. So that's an important difference. And then you deal with the district, and you deal then with what the law provides in terms of who's eligible and so on, but we'll get to that. The most important thing that we need to be aware of right now is that this summer, the U.S. Department of Education issued new guidance. The guidance documents are not law, but they are an indication of how the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Ed, will interpret any questions regarding particular aspects of the program that's under question. So, and how they would likely rule if you eventually get to having to appeal some misunderstanding to the U.S. Department of Ed. So that guidance, I have it spelled out there in case you just going to work off eventually the printed piece of this. Title VIII is the guidance and is the piece of the law that refers to programs 2, 3, and 4 in which private schools participate. So the guidance directive that's mentioned there at the top of the page gives specific Q&As about various parts of each of the program titles, and tries to address a lot of the questions that were raised as the program was being implemented. The first part, sections A and F, have general things about consultation, about allocation of services, delivery of services, and so on. And also, but then the particulars for Title II are in section H. And note that Title I is not part of this guidance. That has all its own guidance, its own Q&As and directives. So you can see that there at the URL at the bottom of the page. So the purpose of Title IIA, supporting effective instruction. That's really the nomenclature that's used in the law itself. And the 4 bullet points I have here are taken from the law. What is the purpose of Title IIA? So it's to assist the SEAs. That's the state education agency, whatever they call it in your state, responsible for education in the state. And the LEA, the local education agency, we usually call it the district. So providing this funding to support professional development for the purpose of supporting effective instruction says that it should be used to increase student achievement, to improve the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other education leaders, to increase the number of teachers, principals, and so on, who are effective in improving academic achievement, and then to provide really more effective personnel, particularly in areas with low-income students where schools often don't get the first choice of educators. So the law has broad parameters about the kinds of activities that can be supported, but basically the program is to look at core academic subjects. So looking at the various things that are part of the curriculum and subject areas, and having the teachers academically prepared to have the content knowledge. And then there's a focus on effectively integrating technology into the curriculum, and that's becoming more important, particularly as AI starts to make its way into our school curriculum. STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and math. We do stream religion and art, but that's not part of the religion piece is not part of what's covered. Effective instructional strategies, methods, and skills, the actual teaching practice. Addressing the needs of students with different learning styles, and then methods of improving student behavior and identifying an early intervention. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the piece about who's eligible. So the piece here on the professional development activities. This is what they're paying more attention to, it seems, from the questions I get from people out in the field that are having problems. So the PD activity should be an integral part of school strategies for providing educators the knowledge and skills to enable students to get a well-rounded education. And Title IV in ESEA program deals with the well-rounded education, and there's a lot in there on content and skills, and this is getting the teachers able to work that effectively. And then the program is supposed to be based on the school's sustained and comprehensive professional D plan for teachers and other educational personnel. So the law is assuming you have financial resources in your school available to put in your budget for PD, that there is a plan for how that would be used. What is it we're working on this year? Maybe we have a school-wide plan for integrating technology. Maybe we have grade level plans for improving reading or math or some other aspect of the curriculum. And then the program that you're choosing to ask them to fund has to plug into, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, how does the activity that you want to attend link to the PD goals that are part of the overall school program or grade level program? So you have to make the connection. Then they need to be designed to meet the needs of the private school students. Now that's really important. As I said earlier, what drives the program is what are the needs of the students and how do we get the teachers able to address those needs? So how do you know what the students' needs are? There has to be some kind of assessment, some kind of data to show that, on a certain test in math, they persistently don't get A, B, or C. And so what does the teacher need to be able to teach that a little more effectively? And then the last part, and this is where we're getting a lot of questions now, of course, because people are trying to get funded to attend the NCEA convention in April, and there are a lot of issues, a lot of questions about how much, where, when, why, how, and so on. So the funds are eligible to be spent on behalf of the educator at conferences that do have a combined religious and secular content, but only the portion that is secular, neutral, not ideological, as they use in the language of the law multiple times over. Only those portions are eligible to be funded. And so we go through a process of dealing with the district over that, and I'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so first off is the whole question of what's PD. The law is clear about professional development, requiring it that it be high quality, personalized professional development that is evidence-based for teachers, instructional leadership teams, etc. And that is focused on improving teaching and student learning and achievement. Now, the evidence-based, and it says in the law, evidence-based where available. So basically what we're looking at here is this program that I'm going to go to improve reading. Is there somewhere that this program has been used or something similar, and is it effective? More and more I'm finding out people are not really being asked that. They're more, the LEA is looking more at the content and how it relates to your overall PD. But basically what we're looking at is, is the practice something that is focused on what your goal is? I mean, it's really nice, I'd like to know that. Oh, gee, that sounds interesting. Why don't I go to that? It's not about you, basically, is the issue. It's about what is the need of the student, and will this program help you to better meet that need? Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. So professional development, the second bullet point there, the second big bullet point, it must meet the definition in that the activity is both part of the strategies of providing the educator. So it's related to the goals that you've set for PD to improve student learning, and then it's sustained, not standalone one day or short term. It's sustained, intensive, collaborative, job embedded, data driven, and classroom focused. Basically what it's saying is, again, it's not, gee, I'm interested in this, why don't I go to this? Is this part of the professional development plan for the year? Okay, so it's important if you're going to something that's a day, or you're having, a teacher meeting, and you want to talk about coaching. So principal has done some reading, could do a fairly good presentation on the effectiveness of teacher coaching. But then you may want to bring in someone who is actually a coach, who has practice in doing this, and you may bring that person in a time or two or three. But again, it relates to the overall goal. The same, when you're picking out things to go to at a convention, what particular items in the program should I highlight for the district that relates to our overall goal, and how attending this would help me to be able to participate with Title II funding. So who is eligible to use Title II funding? Before the 2015 reauthorization, it talked about principals and teachers. In this ESEA that we're using, it talks about educational personnel. So the intended, beneficiaries are teachers, paraprofessionals, principals. In the law, the other school leaders is defined as an individual, in addition to those I just mentioned, an employee or officer of an elementary or secondary school that's located in the LEA, of course, in which you're operating, and is responsible for the daily instructional leadership and managerial operations. So basically, people in the school who have some interaction with the students, who are working as an employee of the school, are eligible to be considered if the program is appropriate for them. So they are looking at, that last bullet point, Funds may be used for training all school personnel, which, and can include not only the paraprofessionals, but perhaps some of the other, even like, if the employee is yours and is like a security guard, or safety officer, or whatever you might want to call them. Funding can be used to help them to become more adept at issues related to school conditions for learning, such as peer, safety, drug and alcohol use, chronic absenteeism, helping to, spot children who may be trafficked, that you can use the funds for training the personnel, because making the school environment more conducive to learning is helping the student to achieve socially, yes, but also academically. So those are important pieces to keep in mind, not just the teacher. So this now includes, like the guidance counselors and the IT people and so on. So now that we know what's eligible for services, who can participate, how do we find out about the money? All right, because again, the proportional share. So in terms of any of the title programs, we talk about the proportional share according to each program has a different formula. So in the law, when Congress passes 1, 2, 3, 4, there's specific directions about how the money flows. So Congress passes a law, then sends money to the U.S. Department of Education. They're the major fiduciary agent for education appropriations. And then from the formulas that are in the law, they send funding to the state education agency. So each state department of education gets the amount that's allocated for their state. And then according to the formulas, they distribute it to the LEA. So that's the flow of the money. The proportional share for Title II is now calculated from the total allocation for the program. So this year, the appropriate funding for Title IIA is $2.1 billion, B as in boy. Hardly ever use millions anymore. Most of the stuff is billions. All right, so right now for this current year, and we do not have a budget for next year yet. We're supposed to do that in March, but you've been following the papers that keep, kicking the can down the road in terms of the budget. And at one point, they were talking about eliminating Title IIA, but every school group is on this, so we will have 2A. Don't worry about that. But unlike previous years, all of the funding that the LEA gets for Title IIA is subject to the proportional share. They can first take off the administration costs, as they've always done, and then they take what's left, which is, 90-something% of the money. And then it's divided according to the proportional share of public to private school students. Prior to this authorization in 2015, only the part of the money that the district decided to spend on PD was subject to equitable share. That's not so anymore. Right now, all of the funding is eligible for equitable services according to the proportional share. The Title II for public schools is different from us in that we can only use whatever that share is for professional development. The public schools can use it for class size reduction, for hiring and recruiting teachers, for various other things that are part of the operation of the school. We don't do that. We use it, but it doesn't matter in terms of us in that we get funding from the total package. So the proportional share, and it has to be equal, as I said earlier. So if $1,800 is the PPA for public, it's also the PPA. So when they divide all the kids and do it proportionally, we come out with the same amount. And it's based solely on the number of students. Doesn't care where they live, how much poverty they're in or not. It's solely a numbers count. What is the ratio? And then the LEA must let the private school officials in the consultation process know how much money is available and how they got that number. So you can ask to see the calculation sheets for how many total students in the district, how many are public, how many are private. Okay, that means that X number is the PPA, and we have X number of students times that PPA, and that's what our school is entitled to have spent on them. Okay, and then again, the whole notion on consultation being a true process and not simply a one-shot meal, a one-shot meeting. So the expenditure of funds for Title II, the SEA can reserve up to 5% for state level activities if they want to do something statewide, or 3% for very targeted principal school leader activities. But if they do that and they offer programs, then equitable services applies. So you have to remember in the consultation process to ask, are there statewide activities that we are eligible to participate in? So again, that's could be anywhere between 5 and 8% of the money. If we're statewide, you should get in on those programs. So then after the state decides to use some, all, or none of it, then the funding goes to the equitable services part of the LEA. So the funding on behalf of private school students can be spent by the LEA school by school, so that the private school representatives meet with the LEA to decide how that funding will be expended for private school professional development. The law is very clear. The guidance now is makes it clearer that each school can negotiate with the district program by program by program, or a couple of schools in the district can decide that so-and-so in this school is really knowledgeable about this and will negotiate for everyone. You just, if someone's going to do it for your school, you just let the district know this is person who has our proxy who will negotiate on our behalf. So it can be school by school, or it can be done what they call pooling. So, and that can be done if there are 3 or 4 private schools in a district decide we don't really get a lot of money on our own to be able to expend. But if we move with these 3 schools, we could have a really good professional development day and bring in this big name speaker that we couldn't afford singly. So you can do that among schools or in the district, or it's possible to do it district across districts. So if there are 2 or 3 districts within reasonable locale and so on, you may be able to do that. The guidance document has, in section B in the guidance document, there are clear examples of how this works. I mean, you could do a whole PD on this, which I really don't have time for today, but it's an option that has to be discussed during consultation. So how can you use this money? PD is not just about the subject level content for educators, but also about those things that improve the conditions of the school to improve teaching and learning process, the whole learning environment. So looking at the list of things here, it's building systems of support for excellent teaching and learning. So you may, as I've mentioned before, bring in coaching or mentoring, to create professional learning communities that are facilitated by coaches or mentors, improving school conditions, like how is the environment conducive to teachers being effective, and that deals with the next couple of things about in-service personnel, not only for techniques for actually effective teaching, but then how assessments, identifying gifted and talent, preventing and recognize child sex abuse, and a whole list of things to help facilitate a learning environment that provides students with a safe place to learn. And apart from safe in terms of a supportive environment, this is not for conditions of physical safety in terms of hardware and software to strengthen the building structure. That's not part of this. So just a quick review again of consultation. Timely and meaningful, meaning that you actually get into a discussion where each participant, district as well as, the private school, makes known what it sees as effective opportunities for effective improvement of teaching and learning. And then, how will the students' needs be identified? If I'm talking about needing to learn to get more content knowledge, perhaps, as well as effective strategies for teaching reading, why do I know that's an issue? Well, we've got scores. You've got teacher reports on student inability and so on. So, you need to go through this list, and some of you have been at a couple of other things that we've done this list interminably all long, but I want to just mention a couple of things that people forget about sometimes when they're dealing with the consultation process. Carryover funds. While you're expected to spend the funding during the year in which it's allocated, there are times, due to some inefficiencies, perhaps on the part of the LEA, that didn't remember that you had another $30,000, and they discover it on May 15th, and you don't have time to effectively use that. That can be carried over for you, and other conditions that are extenuating circumstances they use in the law. But then the transfer of funds, and transferability is becoming more of an issue, I'm finding, across the country. The law does say that the LEA can transfer all or some of the funds from Titles 2, 4, at 2, 3, and 4 into Title 1. And many districts are choosing to do that. They have a lot of Title I eligible kids, or it's just easier to throw all the money into Title I. Then they only have to do one accountability report. They don't have to do reports for the other programs. So if they are going to do Title II transferability, and I'm hearing from people that in several places, there's no money for Title II because it all went into Title I. Now, if it all goes into Title I, you still are able then to participate in the larger Title I pool if you meet the Title I requirements. For many of our schools, you're not going to have enough Title I kids to meet all of the funding available to meet the services, so that you're really being denied funding both in Title II and in Title I. So they're supposed to talk with you, as part of the consultation process. And so you need to really engage with why you don't think it's a good idea for them to transfer all of the money. Because it's all of the money, if all of the money goes to Title II, then there's no money for you for Title II. There's no money, there's no leave behind money. They can transfer 100%, they can transfer 50%. Most of them want to do 100%. If they do leave 30, 40, 50% for Title II, that's then shared with public and private. You're not getting your full potential benefit, but you're getting something. So, I'm trying to, look at this in the sense of equity. So it's important that you make known what it is that you need from Title II to enhance what you're doing, why this is a bad idea in terms of meeting the needs of your students, again, meeting the needs of your students. And then if they go ahead, which they can, unfortunately, we know that they make the final decision, and they take it all out anyway, I'm starting to tell people that maybe it would be a good idea to make a case to talk to the LEA, talk to the district superintendent, or eventually on to the SEA to file a formal complaint that says the LEA did not give due consideration to our request to leave some of the funding in the title that would be subjected to equitable services. Again, it's not leave the money behind for us. They have to leave it all. Okay, they have to leave it so that it's a Title II pot of money, and then it's split proportionally between public and private school students and teachers. So it's important to think about that a little bit. Did they give due consideration, or did they just say, we're transferring it and too bad? Because transferring it and too bad is not giving due consideration to your wishes, and you have a right to file a complaint if they did not give due consideration. So, maybe if we keep making a big enough case about this transferability issue, it will get some attention. Certainly will be a big piece of if and when this bill gets up for reauthorization. So we know the goal of consultation again is to reach agreement. That's whoops, sorry. But the two things I just want to make a point about is that there has to be a written affirmation that you did go through the process, and you don't do that till the end. When you show up the first day and they're going to lay out how they're going to work this for the year, that's an attendance sheet they ask you to sign. That is not a confirmation that affirmation has an affirmation that consultation has taken place. So after the program is implemented, it's been evaluated, then you say, yes, we followed consultation, or no, we didn't. Consultation, it's an actual form they're supposed to present to you with an option to say, I do not believe adequate consultation has taken place because they did not consider my views, consider this, that, and the other thing. And then they have to tell you if one of your requests that they did not accept was the provision of a third-party provider, then they have to tell you in writing why they did not accede to that request. And it's simply not, well, we never do it, or we're just not doing it. It's they're not accepting your request because, and they have to give you reasons for that. So when you go to the consultation process, or whoever, going on behalf of your groups, it's important to pay attention. This is kind of like a checklist, because this is where a lot of the problems occur. And I remind you again that in that guidance document I mentioned at the top end, there are Q&As that try to address things such as travel bans. They can't just outright ban travel. Proportional share of secular religious, how they calculate that, and so on. Again, when you're dealing with the LEA on the particulars, it's important to stress these are the needs of my students. This is how I, as a professional, need to get additional help to be able to meet those needs and the needs of the students. And then I would say, should problems occur when you're trying to deal with the consultation process, get the state ombudsman involved. That's the role of the ombudsman, is to mediate any conflict between the district and the private school personnel. And so you deal with them, and I know that it's iffy in some places about how effective the ombudsman may be. But again, that's, you deal with what you've got. And if there is not a resolution that's you can live with and feel like you've actually been treated fairly, and, if that doesn't happen, then you work your way through the complaint process. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but you can file a formal complaint with the SEA, and you can file a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, in that order. But it's important to constantly refer to the law and the guidance, so that you are, this is nice, but if you can justify it according to the documents, you have grounds for appeal. Then the question about, how does the LEA make sure it's secular neutral and non-ideological when it is a conference that is mixed? So basically, they have to simply determine what portion is secular neutral and non-ideological. And then, so that's where we try to get at NCEA and other places, the program out early, so that you say, well, I want to go to this, and this. So each day they go through it day by day. So how many of the things on this day are secular? Well, they count the day as, the kind of hours in a school day. So if the thing starts at 9 o'clock and the opening thing is liturgy, they're not going to count that. And then you go through the day. So we try, for the NCEA program, we try to put things outside of, like, any of the evening activities. We make sure it's clearly marked as not part of the program, that this is an optional thing. So if going through the program, they determine, and you work with them, and that's where you may have to get the ombudsman, that 63% of what you're going to do is secular, then they pay 63% of the registration, the travel, the lodging, the food, etc. It's not just registration, it's what does it cost to go to this conference? And what are the things they're paying for public school people to go to things. Again, our PD does not have to meet the state standards, the state this, the state that. It's what is it that our students need, and how can we work with the district to provide the services education personnel need. So this is where, you have to get the ombudsman involved. If they're saying, well, no, we never pay for people to go in. Well, maybe you don't pay for public school people, but the guidance says you can't just outright ban travel, okay? Or things of that sort. So it's not, oh, well, we're having a math workshop, come to this. Well, we're not teaching that math program, so why would we go to this? Those are the things you have to pay attention to. And then they may ask you to document it. I mean, I know, having given talks at some of these conventions, people come up to me and say, could you just sign? They'll show me the program and ask me to sign that the person was there. As simple as that, so others just trust you. A lot depends on who you're dealing with, what kind of a relationship the district and the school, has maintained over the years. So, but just keep in mind, it's not just registration, it's the overall cost to attend the conference. So just say a brief word about developing professional development plans. So you need to have some kind of a needs assessment. How do you know the students are not doing well in this, and this? And how do I analyze that and say, well, this is probably what we need to do? So you can, based on student test results and other measures, teacher educational personnel, DPDs, to assist student achievement. Keep reminding that. And then you prioritize your needs and then develop plans to meet them. So basically, it's simple. The district is not requiring you to do should not require you to do extraordinary things. In creating a professional development, basically you have goals and objectives. They may be, this is the school goal that we're looking at. This is the 4th grade goal we're looking at. This is what I'm going to do to meet my part of improving student instruction and so on. What are the strategies to implement? What's the timeline and what would it cost? So basically you're looking at this conference, this program, this college course. And what would that do? So the plan, need not be complicated. And as I said, they can't require you to do extensive paperwork to match their standards, or none of that is on the table. Often they don't ask for anything more than this. And a lot of times they don't ask for anything. They look at, oh yeah, that looks okay, we'll let you go. Of course, that's the easiest. It's not exactly conforming to the law, but, be prepared. So I just, listed here a very simple piece that, gives you some sense of what's the student need, what does the teacher need to meet that, what are you looking to do, and how much would it cost? So you could take a university course. I know one diocese sent a number of teachers and they got degrees in reading or in special ed to be able to meet the needs of the students in their schools, and then to work with the other teachers to help them be more competent in dealing with the same kinds of issues. So, be as creative as you want to in terms of what kind of programs you think you could develop or you could attend. As long as you can match that to a sustained overall sense of the professional development goals for the year, you should be in good shape. And then just a little bit about, maximizing equitable services. The biggest thing is knowledge. What is it the law entitles you to do, enables you to do, and make sure that the district knows that. I think I've said this many times, and I know some of you've been tired of hearing me. But the feds send any information to the state education department. The state education department sends the same information, is supposed to send the same information to all of the district superintendents, who are then supposed to make sure that the person who's handling those different programs gets that data. Very often, there's a break in the chain somewhere, or this year they got all this stuff and then that person moved on and stuff just got thrown, taken, whatever. So it's important that you know what the law, the regulations, the guidance are, and that bring them with you to the meeting. The U.S. Department of Education website has pieces on our NCEA public policy. I have the guidance documents that pertain to each of the programs. It's worth the paper to print it on, to take it with you to a meeting. To be generous and make 2 copies and give one to the person you're dealing with who's like, I never saw this. Just act as if you know what you're doing, and you should not just act it, you should know what you're doing. And then, establish personal contact with the people in the public school district that you have to deal with over the programs. And then be proactive. They're supposed to send you an intent to participate form sometime in the spring for the next year. Don't wait to be contacted. If you haven't heard from them by May, contact them. And your role is to be an advocate for, or whoever is doing the consultation program. Be an advocate for your students and your teachers, your educational personnel. And when your activity is not productive, get the ombudsman involved. And one of the things on the proactive piece, I have a third piece there, be flexible. If you really pay attention to all of the guidance documents and you think through these programs, a number of these programs can be combined to provide an outcome for student achievement that would combine some of Title II with some of Title IV, or 3 and 4, or 3 and 1. So think about ways in which you can maximize participation. And then, exercise your rights. Again, you have a right to know how much money is available for the particular program, how they got that figure. That's also important, not just, oh yeah, oh gee, we have $35,000. Well, how did they get that? Maybe you have 65 and they threw out 35. So it's important that you go through the details of how they've done what they've done. And then, look at as the quality of the program as well as the dollars is really something you need to compare, in terms of, are we getting equitable services or not? So I will look up here. I did not, in any of this, I did not look and see if we have, Angela, how are we doing on the chats or questions?
No questions yet, but I'm still monitoring it, so no
Okay.
worries.
Okay, well, that sort of brings me to a conclusion here. My contact information is on this last slide, and then you will be able to have, this sent to you afterwards. Just a thank you. Thank you for the thank you. And there's the NCEA policy website, and then the link to the Office of Non-Public Education at the U.S. Department of Education. And they have, again, all of the things that pertain to like equitable participation in the various programs. So is there anything else that someone would like to?
Any questions? You can take your time to ask any questions if any of you need to.
There's something in the chat box.
I just submitted
Oh, you
a.
put the
I
more
post-
comment, okay. That's a
Yeah,
survey.
yeah.
Okay,
I
okay,
posted a link to our survey. If you could
okay.
please fill that out, it shouldn't take no more than 5 minutes to complete. It's just
Okay, well,
feedback.
and I blitzed through a lot of this. It's really important that you download the Title VIII guidance. And that are familiar with it. It certainly is your ticket to a more effective participation, if nothing else. I see another Q&A over here. Nope.
It was just a comment saying thank you so much. It's a lot of really good information.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that then. You have my contact information and I'm available for emails or phone conversations.
It appears we have a hand raised. You can submit a question in the Q&A box if you'd like, or you can email Sister Dale. It's up to you. But let me close this out because if you don't have any questions, it's no problem. But thank you all for attending today's NCA webinar. Again, we continuously strive to improve the quality of our services based on our members' feedback. So please, if you can, please fill out the survey that I've included in the chat. It shouldn't take no more than 5 minutes to complete. And if you would like the certificate of completion, please include certificate of attendance. My apologies. Please include your email address and your name at the end of the survey, and it will be sent. The certificate will be sent via automated email. So make sure to check your spam if you haven't received anything yet. And to learn more about our upcoming webinars, please visit ncea.org/webinar and have a great week. Thank you so much, Sister Dale.
Thank you all.
Oh wait, one question. Will we be
Someone
able to
asked-
receive a recording? Yes, you will receive a recording of the webinar. Yeah, so. No worries. Thank
Okay.
you all. Hope
Thank
you
you
have a
all.
wonderful week. Take
Thank you.
care.
Have a good evening,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye-bye.